Hi, welcome back to Cubs and Culture for October 21st, 2018. Moving on to the Best Picture winner of 1954, On the Waterfront. It's a movie by Kazan. He also directed Gentleman's Agreement. It's a very well made film. I have sort of a major issue with it, and it's a little bit into Hollywood. So the movie is basically the story of mob corruption and unions on longshoremen unions, and the center character, Terry, who's disillusioned mob enforcer who turns rat in or informant and testifies against his former boss compatriots, is with the sort of the main plot line. And the thing is, both the movie is a very thinly veiled. Well, maybe it's not thinly veiled. It's really obvious to read something that was going on in Hollywood around this time as sort of the touch point for this, because Kazan and Stolzberg, who was the writer, both of them ended up giving testimony to the House Un-American Activities Committee, which was part of the Red Scare in the 40s and 50s. And both of them named names. Fortunately for Kazan and for everyone involved, every name he named was already suspected or listed by the committee. So this committee unconstitutionally pressured people into naming communists, known communists, or people who organized in the U.S. Communist Party. And Kazan happened to be a member of the Communist Party in the 30s, but he got disillusioned. And in 1952, he testified in front of the committee, and he initially refused, but then he did name names. And then Bugs Stolzberg also named names. And obviously, as a movie about that sort of glorifies being a police informant, it's really easy to read that stuff into it. And now, setting aside all the sort of political aspects of it, it's such an easiest thought to, natural thought to think that about this movie. And I feel like it's overcooked, and so it's not really so much Kazan's politics that bothered me, or I'm upset that he did that, and which is why I'm downgrading the movie. It's just, I think the movie ends up being overcooked and being way too on the nose about this stuff. I also have to say this: I think it's pretty hard to argue that the Academy is a leftist institution when this movie, which again is most easily read as it's not just about the allegory about what Kazan and Stolzberg did, but it's part of it. But it also has union corruption and everything like that. But anyway, it's really hard to read them as a leftist institution when this is one of the most decorated films in history. It won 8 Oscars and everything like that. It's a very well crafted film. So let me bring up the trailers and some clips. It's a crime melodrama. It's gritty. So again, let me bring up some clips. See you in a sec. Okay, so this movie's probably most famous for is Marlon Brando's performance. It's where that line, "I could have been a contender," or I could have been somebody, I'm just a bum, comes from. I'm not actually going to show that scene. I'm actually going to show 3 scenes involving the priest character, because that's sort of the place where I think it's the most overcooked. But while the trailer's playing, this movie is very well crafted. It's very, very stylish. It did win cinematography. It has sort of a shadowy, dark quality, shadow and light quality to it, with the visual scheme. And then also because Terry, the main character, is sort of poised on a redemptive story, because in the context of the story, John Friendly, who's the mob boss, asked him to throw a fight because he was a boxer, and he did. And then he just became sort of a low-level enforcer in the mob. And so his redemption by testifying against the mob. That's him redeeming for him throwing that fight, and allowing himself not to be a contender. Everything like that. Should also say this is loosely inspired by some actual incidences in, I think it was Atlantic City. But in any case, there's that. And so, like, in some ways, I really do like the writing and the screenplay. It has a sort of a deep theological commitment, because it is a redemptive story. And there's this priest character, which we're going to played by Carl Malden, who's very, very good, who's going to be the main thing we're going to focus on in the clips I'm going to show. But it's so pointed and pitched. It's really hard to avoid that this is sort of like psychological leakage of Kazan and Schulzberg trying to atone or justify testifying to the the House Un-American Activities Committee. Anyway, this is one of the more overtly religious Best Pictures as well because of this character. I like the performance. I sort of like that it's part of it. The problem is it's so over the top and overdone. So he's a Catholic priest, and he's so the story. The main thing is the mob killed a previous informant, and so he's now trying to get people to come forward to get testimony against the mob so they can stop being bullied. And this is one. And this refrain of this character about needing to testify happens basically 3 times, and each time it happens, the word silence appears multiple times. And so that's what I mean. It's more like it really does come across like Kazan. And Schulzberg is like, we had to speak up. It's what Christ would have wanted, which is a little bit, ridiculous, and so much psychological linkage that makes it sort of uncomfortable to watch, because you don't know how much the movie is intended to justify what they were doing, or if they were just happened to be drawn to this material. And it's, the House Un-American Activity, that committee, there's nothing illegal. There should be nothing illegal about being a communist, or being a Marxist with Marxist beliefs. It's just the Red Scare, and the Soviet Union and everything like that. That is it's very, very different, than being a avowed mob enforcer like they are here. The other sort of thing about sort of the religious and sort of the conservative theme about this is of course, unions are associated with leftist politics in general, and the right is sort of associated with churches as well. This sequence actually literally ends with the mafia attacking a church, which is again so over the top that it's sort of hard to ignore the political situation. I also want to say this: Brando does give a very good performance. I actually think his performance in A Streetcar Named Desire is better. That to me is the main Brando performance in the 50s. Terry's a good character, and I think the character is better. I think a lot of the strength of that character comes from how he's written. This is what I was talking about there. No one's going to come forward. In any case, okay, so anyway, in the plot of the movie, that character right there, eventually, Kalo is his name, comes forward and he's going to testify. So he gets murdered here by dropping Irish whiskey on him. And everything like that. Obviously, that's basically instant death. So this scene, the priest is going to come, and again, he's going to demand that people break their silence. Which again, the movie is trying to make a redemptive story for Terry, for him to come forward and be an informant. My problem with it, and this notion is repeated at the end when Terry is walking into the ship, defying the mob boss again. He's turned into something like a Christ figure, and so anyway, Father Barry is going to end up saying that what happened to him is like the crucifixion. And not coming forward is like a crucifixion and everything like that. And again, if you're following the sort of parable, I mean, Kazan and Schlossberg didn't have all that many issues, but they did have their so the thing is, for him to have a career, he could have been blacklisted. He couldn't have taken that choice. Many people did, but he named names, and because of that, his career survived. But if you're following sort of the allegory here, it feels like, but people gave him the cold shoulders, even as late as like 1999 when he won an honorary Oscar. About half the audience did not clap for him. So it feels like he's saying as director to like stop crucifying me, which is just so over the top, and everything like that. Especially since he has most of the other characters literally egg the priest and everything like that. I mean, in the context of the movie, it works, but it's so hard to get over this stuff. In any case, like I was saying, in terms of like political and religious import, this is one of the most religious and conservative best pictures. In fact, I think this film pretty much destroys any argument that the Academy is a leftist institution, because leftists would never, ever honor this film because it is so deeply religious and deeply conservative politically, especially when you take into account what Kazan did. I will say this, I really do like this performance. I like this speech in the context of the movie, ignoring the allegory. I mean, it is a sort of very forceful religious sequence, and it's powerful in that way. Now, the last thing I want to show you is this bit in the bar where Terry's brother Charlie, this is after I couldn't have been a contender scene, where Charlie was unsuccessful to get him to not be an informant, though he's still neutral at this point. The priest has come along, because he's trying to go over because Charlie, his brother, was killed by John Friendly, who was the main mafia guy, and so he's trying to find him and take over the bar and everything like that. So the priest comes along, and he's going to again plead with him to break his silence because of him wanting to get the mob out of the docks. And again, the thing is, it seems almost like these three different scenes have three different appeals in terms of why people should be testifying against communists. If you're following the allegory, the first one is sort of an appeal to community and your own sort of standards. It's better for everyone if it happens. The second one is just about deeply religious. It's what God would have wanted. And the third one, in this case, because Charlie has been killed in the context of the movie, it's now him coming forward is no longer sociological or theological. It's personal. It's about revenge. And it's all three that sort of works with it. And there's that. And again, at the end of this movie, it's very well acted. It's very well written. It's obviously fantastically acted, especially Molden and Brando, and then Lee, who plays them, John Friendly, he's also in 12 Angry Men. It's just Kazan makes sort of a stylish film. It's very well paced. It's gritty. It's real. It's one of the more at this time. It's one of the more realistic Best Picture winners in the first half, because at this point, sort of the European realism was starting to come into Hollywood, but it's still sort of distasteful and marred because of sort of the production history and sort of either the forceful allegory or the psychological leakage by Kazan and Holzberg. So that's going to be it. See you guys tomorrow.